Namaste and welcome to Dragonfly Kukri and Knives. This is the second video of the handmade kukris from Nepal in our series of production kukris versus handmade kukris. In this video we're going to talk about the budget-friendly kukris. And there's two particular companies that I'm going to be talking about, and that's GK&CO Kukri House and Gurkha Kukri House. Both make a very budget-friendly, decent kukri. Now, when in the first video that I did in our series of handmade kukris from Nepal, we talked about Himalayan Imports. Now, Himalayan Imports had a tough road in that they were the first ones to introduce the American consumer of what a handmade kukri from Nepal was. Most people, most consumers here in the United States didn't know what a kukri was. They saw it as a funny knife and looked at it the way I did when I first saw my first one, wondering why the cutting edge is on the wrong side and so forth. Why is it bent that way? Anyways, Bill, when he first introduced Himalayan Imports to the consumers here in the United States, the only vehicle to really get his product out there and known was through the magazines. And that was by taking little spot ads in the back of the magazines and put them out there. And that wasn't a cheap venture. I used to be in the advertising business, and I used to do media campaigns for my customers in those very same magazines that Himalayan Imports were using. And that was Blade Magazine, Knife Illustrated Magazine. I think he even did some ads in Black Belt Magazine, which is a martial arts magazine, and Guns and Ammo, which is a gun magazine. So he used and tried to get his product known the only way that he could, and at that time, magazines were it. And if you were fortunate enough, you might get the attention of the editors of the magazine, who might have one of their writers go and interview you, and where you could demonstrate and talk about your item, and it got featured. And I think at a few points during the 90s, Bill was able to get his product known that way. He had some articles written in those magazines and talked about it. I know I don't have the magazine handy where I could show you. I have it in storage somewhere, but I do know there was a magazine that I read that talked about Bill and Himalayan Imports, and it was in Blade Magazine. But that's how he did it. And this was before the internet. Now, during the 90s, you did have the internet, particularly toward the end of the 90s, but it was very, very slow. It was dial-up. It was painful. It went over your phone line. Okay, now you have fiber optics and you have faster computers, and the internet is a joy to use. As a matter of fact, just about all companies now use the internet to make their products known or to sell their products. Plus, you have now in the turn of the century, in the 21st century, we have eBay and Amazon. Amazon, when they first came out, they were only doing books. Now, with Amazon, you can buy groceries, you can buy books, you can buy kukris. And eBay, you can buy cars and boats. And I mean the cars you drive and the boats you put in the water and either go water skiing or sailing. Plus, you can buy a lot of other things. And you can sell a lot of things on eBay. So they're very useful and very relevant platforms for sellers to sell their products. Now, with the speed of the internet now being what it is, Himalayan Imports obviously has a website up, and it's a very, very beautiful website, very informative and very easy to use. Now, the two companies that I'm going to be talking about, GK&CO Kukri House and Gurkha Kukri House, have their own websites, and they also use eBay and Amazon. That's our main selling platform here in the States, and it's been very successful for them. They've been able to sell a lot of kukris and get a lot of kukris in people's hands. Where Himalayans set that standard, the commies who were trying to bring their product into this market, the American consumer expected them to look like, feel like, and be like Himalayan Imports. Now, Himalayan Imports is a very high quality kukri, but they tend to be a bit on the heavy side. Hence why I think a lot of kukris that are now being offered in the States here continue to be a bit on the heavy side in competition with Himalayan Imports, because they were the first ones that really took that, set that standard. Now, unfortunately, these companies sometimes get referred to as tourist-grade kukris. And that's because most of these, I know both of these companies, have a storefront in Kathmandu where they're selling to tourists who are visiting Nepal. And if they happen to come in there, they may pick up one of their kukris, and because it says Nepal on it, and they got it from ex-Gurkha Kukri house, it falls in that category of being a tourist kukri. So in a way, yes, that's true, but in one of my previous videos, I showed the first kukri I ever owned, ever purchased, and that's this. This is a tourist kukri. It is meant to be hung on the wall or on a mantle. It was not intended to be used. It looks, it feels like a kukri, but it was not intended to be used. When I bought it, it had the same cutting edge, which had it wasn't sharp at all. I could run my fingers like this on it all day long, and I wouldn't cut my fingers. Now, I did take it and have a cutlery shop grind an edge on it for me, so I could go out and use it as a kid. And it does cut. It has a Rockwell rating, probably in the 30s on up to the low 40s. So it's not going to hold an edge for very long. And if so, it's going to have rolled edges when it hits a hard object or a chip. So it is not intended to be used. This is a tourist kukri. That's what I mean when I call something a tourist grade kukri, meaning that it is meant to be admired but not used. If it's intended to be used, it's a tool. It may not be the best tool, but it is a tool, and it is designed to function as a tool. And these two companies actually make decent product. They don't make horrible product, and they are tools meant to be used, designed to be used, and are very functional in the capacity in which they are used. Now, just because they're in Kathmandu on the main street where the tourists walk in and can purchase a kukri, let's go back to World War II time. You had GIs at the end of the war who were there in Kathmandu, probably waiting to get shipped back home, and they had to wait there some time, and they would go walk around, and they would go into the commie shops, and they would see the kukris on display there, and they would purchase them and bring them back home. Some of them may have had a kukri and lost it, or had to turn it back in, and they wanted a replica, one that was made exactly like theirs. Now this one very well could be one of those kukris that was made either right at the end of the war or during the war for a GI who lost his MK2. And if that be the case, then this is still a MK2 that was either used during the war or was carried home at the end of the war. But this is 100% MK2 in every aspect other than that it is handmade instead of machine made. But it has the same groove, it has the same curve, it's a 13-inch blade with a 2-inch belly, it has the rounded spigot on the cowdy, it has the blended bolster that goes right in, blended into the blade, it has the 2 rivets, that's steel and brass, it is a panwall design with a pinged butt plate. But instead of a wood handle, which the factory or the factory made kukris would have had. This one has a horn handle, which is very typical of what some of the commies who were making MK2s and MK3s for souvenirs to take home after the close of the war. They made them in the same specifications, just like the originals. This one has a thick spine that tapers to the tip. This is a very useful kukri, very functional. Will do everything that any MK2 will do. It is an MK2. Now, the reason why I don't think it's the factory one is because it has a horn handle on it. Now, is it possible it is a factory and the horn handle was put on because the wood handle fell off? That's possible too. It could have been a repaired kukri. There's a lot of possibilities. But the point I'm trying to make is you could get this quality of the kukri at the close of the war that a commie handmade that is every bit as functional as the original one. This I would not call a tourist kukri. I would call this a handmade kukri from Nepal, or a factory kukri that a commie had repaired or had this made in replacement. Now, the scabbard is not your true military grade scabbard, and the reason is because the lacing in the front. Most of the MK2s that I've seen don't have that. And the way that the spacing of the double belt loop tends to make me think that it probably is replacement scabbard rather than the actual factory issued scabbard. But I could be wrong on that. There's not a whole lot of information out there that can define these two. But so this is my take on it. But my point is that this is a quality kukri that you could have purchased at the end of the war, and some of them had horn handles, some of them had bone handles, some had some decorations on it, but yet it was still in the shape and style and specifications of an MK2 or an MK3. And you could call it a tourist kukri all day long, but it's 100% functional. You know, it's a tool. And it's a very good replica of the original, if it is indeed a replica of it. Now, you could go to the high end, get a high-end quality kukri that has, you know, like this Torah blades, where it's a hollow grind. This is a much lighter kukri. It's made for martial arts. It's fast, light, and yet it's sturdy enough to do all the tasks that any kukri would be expected to do. You could chop wood, build a shelter. It's 100% functional. Great kukri. Excellent. Comes in a great package. But this is also a lot more expensive. This is the high-end kukri. So in the budget-friendly kukris, GK&CO Kukri House and Gurkha Kukri House, and there's others like Everest Kukri House and others like them that are making a budget-friendly but very functional tool, a very functional kukri. Now, to start off with, I'm going to state though one thing. When you buy a high-end kukri, whether it be from Torah blades, from Dragonfly Kukri and knives, from Himalayan Imports, or from some of the other higher end, you're going to get a really good traditional scabbard with your kukri. It's a traditional kukri, scabbard, and it still requires safe, handling. You want to put your hand on the back of the spine when drawing it out. But when you go to put that blade back in, and you slide it in with the spine against it, it slides in and out very easily. That's a good quality, very functional, traditional, safe scabbard for your kukri, especially when you're using it properly. Now, some of the lower end kukris that are budget friendly have tried to save money, I guess. is the only thing I can figure. And also try to make something that's more eye appealing to get your attention, to where, hey, it's not your basic black. It's like a tie-dye looking scabbard, or it's a lighter color scabbard, but it's made out of a different material, and that material is really cheap and really dangerous for a scabbard. Now, I'll illustrate that as we go along. Now, to start with GK&CO, I'm going to show this kukri. This is the World War II kukri. That's what they call it, and it's got about a 11.5-inch blade, which is part of the reason why they're calling it a World War II kukri, and it has a wood handle, which is what I'm figuring that they are, another reason why they're calling it the World War II kukri. However, it's not really a true pattern of a World War II kukri, in that it has that very straight line from the elbow to the tip, and it is thick, from the same thickness from the bolster all the way to the bevel of the edge, which follows the current BSI style. So it's like a longer or larger current issue BSI. If you were to shorten this blade a bit and put a horn handle on it, it's a BSI, the current issue BSI. So I really don't think it's a traditional, true World War II patterned replica of a World War II kukri, but it is a very functional kukri. Even though it's a relatively thick spine, it's got about a 5/16 of an inch, maybe a little bit thicker, and it's consistent all the way to where the bevel of the tip is, which makes it a very strong and sturdy kukri. This thing's not going to break on you. It has a very good and a very large sweet spot for chopping, so it's, has a really good function to that. The wood handles very beautifully, nicely grained, well polished, with brass butt plate and keeper. It's a stick tang, goes all the way through to the tang. You can definitely get some good purchase on it. There's enough platform for your thumb to have a very secure place to rest your thumb on. If you were going to do any whittling, you could definitely get in there and do it, and do it with confidence and good control, good dexterity. So this is actually a relatively useful and very budget-friendly kukri, handmade from Nepal. It's got the polished blade and very nice, beautiful grained handle, as you can see there. And this is a very good tool. And you can purchase this on eBay from them at, I think it was $68 with free shipping. And that's really good, very good quality for that price range. And it comes with a traditional scabbard that's very functional and very safe to use, although you definitely want to always use good practice of holding it at the back of the spine. But when you go to take it out and put it back in, you rest that spine on there and you slide it right in. It goes in just as it's supposed to, without any catches or hang-ups. And to lock it, just push it forward and it locks it in quite well. Has a good belt loop, good thick leather, and a brass shape on it. So very good and very traditional in many ways. And for the price point, you're getting a handmade kukri from Nepal that's going to last you a lifetime, and be able to probably last your sons or daughters' lifetime if they wish to take it and use it as well. Now, here's another one by the same company. This is a very modern style, definitely looking to attract an American purchaser or a Western purchaser or consumer, in that it has the finger guards in it. It's got a very long and large handle, and with an integrated hand guard to protect your hand from sliding up on the blade. in the Western market were used to knives with quillion and hand guards on it to protect your hands. So they've incorporated that idea into this style, although that's not part of their tradition. Okay, neither is the finger grooves, but it is a pan wall design with a traditional butt plate and keeper and a traditional style blade. This one is an Ikchira, but it's not a functional Ikchira. In other words, it's not a functional fuller. It doesn't really lighten the blade nor change the reverberation to the hand. But it's a very thick and sturdy blade, and it's a very sharp blade. And it's traditionally made where it's softer on the spine, a little bit harder in the center, and hardest on the edge. This is a traditional kukri in that capacity. And it will function and work just like any other kukri. You could actually, the handle's long enough, you can get a two-handed purchase on this. With that hand guard, you can lock your fingers in and bring your index finger in, and you've got a great control and dexterity with a good thumb platform because of the thickness of the spine to get in there and do some whittling if you need to. I could definitely sharpen a pencil with this, no problem, and have good control. Is it thick? Is it a sharpened pry bar because it's so thick? Yeah, it is. But let me tell you how that might work actually in your favor. Number one, with this thickness, I could easily baton through wood with this without any fear of damaging this blade. Another thing is it has enough weight and heft. I could probably split logs like I could with a axe with this. Is it friendly for the trail? Not really. It's too heavy for that. But is it a good camp tool and be able to build a shelter and do whittling and make your tent pegs and process your campfire? Absolutely, 100%. Very functional. Now, when a sharpened pry bar comes in hand, I used to be a fireman. 90% of our calls were traffic related. If I was the first fireman in scene, and sometimes I was in my own vehicle, and if I had this in my toolbox, and I had a victim trapped in the car, and I had to pry open that door, I'd have no problem sticking this in that door and prying with it to open that door. And guess what? Because it has a cutting edge, I could get in there and maybe release that victim from their seatbelt and start giving medical aid to them as quickly as possible. And having that sharpened pry bar really helped. It became a very useful tool. So, form follows function. This is a heavy-duty chopper. It's a heavy-duty kukri. And for the price point, for about $70 with free shipping on eBay from GK&CO, you're getting a decent handmade kukri from Nepal. The Scabbard, on the other hand, is dangerous. This one isn't as bad as some. It still allows me to fit it in there. I have to kind of wiggle it a little bit, and it is a bit loose. I can lock it in there a bit, but it's very cheaply made, and the reason why I say it's dangerous is that by holding this where I can see light, I actually see light coming through the end of where the wood and the leather is. And whatever kind of leather this is, it might be goat skin or something like that. It's not the best skin. It's kind of like a vellum. It's almost like a plastic, but it's not plastic. It's an animal skin. But this is a very dangerous style of scabbard. So if you do purchase from them, either request from them to give you this kind of scabbard with it, or when you do get it, just take it out, put this aside somewhere for looks or whatever, and have somebody make you a custom scabbard or sheath made out of kydex or leather, or repurpose one of your other scabbards from one of your knives that you don't use very often and put it in there. And you'll have a very good and useful kukri that's handmade from Nepal at a very reasonable price. Okay. It comes with a card and chakmak. They're real small, they're little, and they're not very functional, so I put them in my shoebox. I take them out. But having this tool, it's a good tool. for the price, it's not bad. Now, Gurkha Kukri House. I'm going to try to just go through it fast, just showing you some of the different styles they have, and then I'm going to kind of give a little further elaboration on the danger of the scabbards that I've talked about. Now, this is a traditional style. It is actually a replica of the current BSI that's being issued to the Gurkhas with the British units. So this is what it looks like. It has a very straight line at the elbow, a 2-inch belly, decent chopping area. It's a 10-inch blade. This one, very, very thick spine, as all of them tend to have. And it doesn't taper very much at all until you get to about right here. But very, very thick. So it's a bit of a heavy kukri for its size. Now, the Gurkhas would get 2 of these. One would be polished with a patent leather scabbard for their parade issued kukri, and then they have one that has a satin finish with a brush finished brass bolster and butt plate and keeper with a raw horn handle, and the polished one would have a polished horn handle, and then it would have a scabbard very similar to this. Now this particular one was made in 2014. It's actually stamped and dated there with the Nepal on it, and then it has their logo on it. So you know who made it. It has a slight hollow grind. You know, it's not functional. It doesn't lighten the blade. It doesn't change the reverberation to your hand to be a good enough hollow forged. But there is a slight hollow forge to it, which kind of makes it look nice. This one is a very good chopper. However, the handle, I have some issues with it. The quality of the handle they had a very beautiful, nice smoky buffalo horn handle with some nice marbling on it. Potentially very beautiful. However, it had some defects in it. And what they tried to do is they tried to patch it with some putty, and because it's a smoky color horn handle, it's not a dense black horn handle, that really shows up, and it's a very bad imperfection. Is it functional? Yeah, it's still functional. Where it's not very functional is it's very, very pointed on these ends here, and it's a very narrow style butt plate and keeper. The problem is, if you choke further back, what ends up happening when you're chopping and you're swinging this, these little points dig right into the palm of your hand, and it hurts. So it's not very comfortable and user-friendly on that end. That's the bad part of this particular kukri design. Now, could I have made a complaint and asked them to replace it? Yes. And would they? Yes. They give very good customer service. And they would have no problem replacing it with something that would handle those issues that I'm talking about. However, for the price point, I think I bought this from them for about $45, maybe $50. It really wasn't too much of an issue for me. It still was functional, and I could still use it. And also, there's a bit of a rattle in it. You can hear, and that's where a little piece of glue or something came loose, and it's inside there. That could be a little annoying when you're chopping and you're hearing that rattle, but majority of them that you get, I could order 20 of these, and this might be the only one that had that problem. All the rest would have looked fine and not have the issues that this one has. So, I could have just gotten one of those rare ones, but very nice scabbard for it. It's traditionally made. It's good cow leather. It does work very well for the kukri. Easy to slide in and slide out, and yet it has fairly decent retention. It comes with a card and chakmak, which I consider are the throwaways. It's not a very useful size, and really the bevel grind on it is really bad. I've taken it on my workshop to put a little edge on it, but really it ends up in my shoebox. It's not a real functional thing. But the kukri itself is not bad. The traditional Changpa puree, I'm probably mispronouncing that, and please forgive me for that. This one is a very nice one, and it is a traditional design. Same length as the BSI, but yet this is a little thinner blade as far as the profile. It's more of a Sarapati style with a Changpuri enclosed cowdy, which is traditional, and the traditional handle and butt plate and keeper. Now this one has come a little bit loose, probably because of the shrinkage of the horn, but it really doesn't affect the function or the usefulness of this kukri. It's a very thick blade, so this is a strong, sturdy blade. It's not going to break on you. It's going to hold a very good edge. You've got great purchase point where you could get in there and do some whittling without any fear of coming up on that sharp edge. It's a very comfortable handle. I really like that handle. It's very comfortable. And it comes with the traditional style scabbard. And for the price point, which I think I paid for this particular one, at the time, I think I paid $45 for it. Not bad for $45. And it's a very useful, good, handmade, traditional, beautiful kukri that's 100% functional. Now some of the other ones, this one is a villager. They called it the butcher's kukri because it has kind of a unique tip on it. This one is a raw, what I would call villager style. It has the blackened side with a satin spine and grind bevel for the edge. Has a raw wood handle, but that doesn't mean it's splintery. It's sanded and smooth and comfortable. This one is actually, it's kind of a unique style. I don't really like this tip that much as far as looks and appeal, but this is one wicked chopper. I've gotten out there and used this quite a bit, and I've never been dissatisfied with it. It really just goes right through material when chopping it. It's very comfortable in the hand. I've never had any hot spots. It's actually a very functional kukri and a very functional tool. And again, for the price point, I think it's about $50 or $60. Now the scabbard, on the other hand, is that cheap vellum type, and that I would like to have seen it in the traditional black instead of this cheap and dangerous type of scabbard. Now this particular one actually works quite well with this kukri. It's not hard to pull in or out, so this one actually kind of does function well. It's just I won't hang it on my belt. It came with a card and chakmak. They were real small. They ended up in the shoebox. This is a useful tool, and for the price point, you're getting a handmade kukri that's going to be very comfortable and very, you're going to be able to chop wood with it. You're going to be able to go and do your gardening with it. It has, where this tip actually kind of comes in handy is that you can actually get up there and you could do some skinning with it. It's got enough roundness to it that you could really get in there and get between the hide of a deer and the flesh and be able to process it through pretty good for such a large tool. But this is a very functional tool. And for the price, it's not bad. Now for a more traditional style, they do a traditional style. They'll do some, additions to it, like a traditional kukri won't have the lanyard hole. But for a pan wall design, full tang, it is a useful hole. It's big enough to put your cordage through. Now this one has more of the traditional nice curve to it. It's a duchira, but it's only by looks, not by function. It's not deep enough to lighten the blade or to cause the reverberation to go from the hand. But it's very thick, very sharp, traditional style, and it's a very attractive kukri. Again, for the price point, I think I paid $100 for this one. It's a little bit longer, 13-inch, satin finished with some a nice decoration in it with brass inlay. It's a very attractive, budget-friendly kukri that will do a great job. It functions very well with a traditional scabbard. It doesn't have a chape on it, so there's nothing to protect the tip on it, but it's a light scabbard, and did come with a chakmak and karta that were useless, so they ended up in the shoebox. But for a more traditional style kukri, this one you wouldn't be. You have a very useful kukri that has some good traditional design to it. And for an economic kukri handmade from Nepal, that's not bad at all. If you were to find a maker here in the States making a product just like this, you would be paying like $300 for it. So for a handmade kukri from Nepal, this is not bad at all. And last, but another design, it's not going to be the last one. Another one is a very unique style, horrible scabbard, but very nice design. This is kind of integrating some American style or Westerner style with tradition of the traditional kukri. Here you have the very traditional shaped blade, no cowdy though, but they put that little bit of a slant there to kind of for looks, but also can function as a finger choil, and you can get nice purchase on there and do your whittling with it. So locking those fingers behind that hand guard. So there's your Western part. It's a very sturdy, strong steel hand guard, but traditional handle. It's a panwall design, very nice, solid, and it's long enough, big enough handle. You can get a two-handed purchase on this, and be able to get through some firewood chopping. It's very functional, very useful. About 5/16 of an inch thick. That doesn't taper much. It is an Eek Chira in that it has a single fuller. Again, not functional, but for looks. But yet it's a very nice design. And for kind of a modern fantasy style kukri, it's pretty cool. And for the price range, I think it was about $125. Not bad. Now, scabbard, I wish they would have used the black leather buffalo hide scabbard instead of this vellum. This one, it slides out okay, but getting it in is a little bit difficult because of the point, and it's not polished on the inside, sanded real well. So there's like pieces of the wood that will come out. It comes out. And plus, no, it doesn't have really good retention. I'd rather have a loose retention than what I'm going to show you next. This will be the last one of ex-Gurkha Kukri House. Now, I have it in a different scabbard. This is a sheath that I borrowed from another production kukri, and it fits this kukri just fine because they're roughly about the same length. Now, this is a panwall design. It looks like it has the same profile blade as your BSI current issue. It's relatively thick spine. It doesn't taper at all to the front. It's a heavy blade, but it's a very strong and sturdy cutting tool that you could definitely take to the campsite and process anything you need in the campsite with this. You can build a shelter. You can process your firewood and everything. Beautiful grained Indian rosewood handled panwall design, butt plate and keeper. Very good kukri for the price point. And I think again we're talking about $60 here for a handmade kukri from Nepal. That's going to last you a lifetime. It's going to stay. It's strong. You're not going to break it. But the scabbard it came with is absolutely dangerous. This is what I'm talking about, and this is what I'm hoping I get, the point I get across to any commies and any sarkies that are listening to this video. Stop making scabbards like this and offering them with your kukris. This one is so tight to get in, and when you do get it in, if I was holding this down here, when I was pushing this kukri in, it actually came out the top, the back of this scabbard where we're supposed to hold it. If I was holding down here and not holding here, it would have gone through and would have impaled my hand. I would have had to gone to the doctor and got stitches and maybe had surgery to repair some ligaments or some damage. I might have lost the use of this hand. Another thing, because it's so tight and hard to get in and out of, that it begs you to get a man-sized grip on it, manhandle it, to pull that blade out or to push that blade in. And because it's such thin, like vellum paper leather, it will cut right through, and you would cut the digits off your hand. You would cut your fingers right off, pulling it out hard. Okay? So this is a dangerous... I'm not talking about looks here and cheapness. I'm talking about danger. This is dangerous to put with this blade. This is strong and sharp, and it will have no problem taking fingers off or stabbing through my hand if it's in a cheap, horrible, dangerous scabbard. Stop making these scabbards with your handmade kukris. Be proud of your product. Be proud of your tradition. Make your traditional scabbards. They don't have to look like this to sell your kukris. This is fine. This is good, and it's safe. If I'm using the correct way of handling this, and I return this kukri back to its scabbard and take it out, and I'm doing safe practice, I'm not going to hurt myself. This is safe. This is not. This is not. This is not. This stuff is as an American consumer, as a person who loves handmade kukris, as a person who's purchased your product, I do not like your scabbards. And I don't have a problem telling you that. But, these scabbards. I like these scabbards. This is safe, it's good, it's traditional, and it's functional. It does what it's designed to do. Form follows function. Form does not follow function. This will hurt somebody. This will cause injury. This will make sure somebody doesn't use their left hand. And if they're a southpaw and they're doing it, it'll hurt their right hand. Whatever hand that they're holding this scabbard in, they're going to get hurt. And it doesn't matter whether you're practicing safe holding of this scabbard, because I've proven it by putting this tip right through the top, the back end of this. Cheap and unsafe. So that's it. That's my pet peeve about the economic kukris, is when they use this. But if you find them with this type of material, you're getting a safe and very functional and a very economic handmade kukri from Nepal that you could feel comfortable and safe and to use, and you're getting something that's going to work very well for you, and it'll last you a lifetime, and your son's lifetime or daughter's lifetime, whoever you gift it to, when you no longer want to wield these. So that's my presentation here of the Gurkha Kukri House and the GK&CO Kukri House budget kukris that you can find on eBay and Amazon at a very reasonable price, and many times with free shipping and no wait time. You don't have to wait for like you do for Torah blades. Torah blades, you could wait a whole year before you get it. I think I waited about 8 months for this kukri when I put my order in. Now, was it worth the wait? Yes, it was, because look at the quality. It's an excellent, excellent kukri. I love this. This is one of my favorite Torah blade kukris that I own. And, it was worth the wait. And I don't have a problem waiting for something that's being handmade. And especially if it's being handmade for me, no two is going to be exactly alike. So it's very unique. Beautiful, beautiful kukri from Torah blades. 8 months, almost a year. Some of the kukris that I make, that my kami make for my website, will take a good 6 months to make a really good quality kukri like this. And it's important to know that when you're ordering a higher end kukri, it's going to take time to make it. So, keep that in mind when you're ordering from Torah Blades or Himalayan Imports or myself, that to get this quality of a kukri, it's going to take some time to get it in your hands. But if you are on a budget and you don't want to wait real long, these kukris are handmade from Nepal as well, and they are functional. They're not the same quality, but they are very useful tools. And when you see these being demonstrated in my videos, in comparison from the high end to the economic and to the mid-range, they all function very, very well. They do what they're designed to do. So, thank you for watching. And if you will, please like and subscribe to my YouTube page. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them either on my YouTube page or on my Facebook page and at Blue Dragonfly Trading Post. And you can also message me there for any specifications or questions or comments that you want to make. Also, please visit my website at dragonflykukriandknives.com. I do not sell GK&CO and Company, Kukri House, nor do I sell Gurkha Kukri House products. So you won't find these budget ones, but I do have some kukris that are in the more affordable range and available on my website as well. So please check them out, and excellent kukri for a good price. You can find them on eBay and Amazon. Look under Kukri and look for Gurkha Kukri House or GK&CO Kukri House, and you'll be able to find a reasonable and very strong, sturdy, handmade kukri from Nepal. Thank you very much for watching. Namaste. God bless. Thank you.